Hey everyone, it's Melanie Johnson here at our Leap Expert Insider podcast. I'm with Jenn Foster, my business partner at our publishing company. How are you doing, Jenn?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful sunny day outside.
Yeah, fall is in the air. So I always love this time of year. So everything kind of changes. And in Houston, everything is just blooming big again. Like it had the heat of the summer, but now everything's blooming again. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. How can you bloom with your business? A strategy that I think gets forgotten sometimes is PR. How do you get your press release read? What is the strategy for press releases? What is a strategy of that type of marketing and getting articles written about you? It's really a big hurdle. I used to be in the television business, owned two TV stations. We didn't let just anybody on our air to be a contributor or do a story about them. So there really is a strategy behind how to do that. Of course, I own a publishing company, and when I owned a TV station, we did kind of lean towards people who had a book. We're going to talk about that too. Is it easier if you have a book or not have a book? Does it matter? So we have an expert with us, Mickie Kennedy, today. He owns eReleases, and we're going to dive deep into this topic that I think so many business owners are curious about. Mickie, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit how you got into this industry of articles and PR.
So I had graduated from grad school with an MFA in creative writing with an emphasis in poetry. My career plan was to wait tables and write poetry. And I did that for a summer and realized that I wasn't writing anything. I was just like psychologically spent at the end of a shift, and my back hurt, my ankles hurt. I just realized I was not set up for this. So I decided to get a safe office job and got hired at a telecom research startup as employee number 3. And because I had writing on my resume, that was enough for them to say, you need to figure out press releases for us and send them to the media. And I did that. And I know that we publish data. And so I sort of looked at anomalies, like strange little quirks in traffic statistics. And like one country in the Caribbean has more traffic to and from the United States than all other countries combined. And that was during the 1900 era, and that was because of that. That was where it was based. And so I would put together these little stories and send them to the media through faxing, and the media just jumped on it. And we got lots of articles: Financial Times, The Economist, Washington Post, New York Times. We were just killing it. And I was just like, why aren't other people doing this? This is just so great. And at the time, I also noticed that a lot of the journalists were getting these faxes, and they were calling and saying, could you just email it to us? Because, it's easier to copy and paste the numbers and data that we had. So a light bulb went off, and I started in my spare time, which wasn't considerable, working for a startup, reaching out to the journalists and just asking them if I could send them press releases in the future via email. And I launched about a year after that with 10,000 journalists in my database. And I was just a matchmaker, putting my clients' press releases with people I thought that would be receptive to it. And over the years, PR Newswire reached out to us and said, why don't you also add our distribution? And I pointed out that they charge $1,500 to move a 600-word press release, and I didn't think it was going to be possible. But despite that, we were able to work it out, and now all of our releases go out nationally through them, and you certainly don't have to pay anything close to $1,500 to work with us. So it's been a fun evolution, and there's been a lot of trends and changes over the years, and I've just been sort of going along with it and tweaking what I do and trying to educate my customers on what the landscape is and what types of press releases they should be doing.
I find it so interesting because, like, when authors ask us, do you do PR? And we tell them, no, we don't do that. Like, we don't guarantee you TV appearances or magazine or newspaper articles and things like that. And my experience in the past with PR in general, depending, I guess, maybe on the agent that you work with, was like you were spending a lot of money and you really sometimes saw no results at all. So I was like, well, maybe your money is better spent somewhere else versus like just maybe, I don't know, I spent all this money on a PR person, I didn't get anything. How do you know like if they're looking for a PR agent, like if they're looking for you, what are things that they should look for a qualified person to do what you do?
I think that one is the track record of that person. Are they within a particular industry that you're targeting? If you are working with a PR firm that's a generalist, they're probably not very good at it, because PR firms are often specific within an industry because they have to make connections within a particular industry. And it's very hard to, as an agency, have contacts across many different industries. It's something that I don't even have any longer, being a press release distribution platform. We rely on the newswire predominantly for our targeting and getting out there. A lot of PR firms, work through us, but in addition to using us to distribute on the wire, they're doing the pitching directly to journalists as well, that they've gotten a Rolodex. And a good PR firm is often going to be very segmented, like they only do fashion, or they're within the high tech sector, focusing more on, say, AI or something along those lines. So I would look at who their customers are, and if it looks like they're a good fit for you. If you're looking for a press release distribution platform, is it going over a major newswire? In the US, there's 3. PR Newswire, who we work with, is the oldest and largest. There's also Business Wire and Globe Newswire. Both PR Newswire and Business Wire are quite expensive and out of the reach for most small businesses. But through us, you're able to get that. So that's a really good win there. There are a lot of other businesses with wire in their names that say that they send releases, but they're not newswires. It's just those 3. And so a lot of people in the space do syndication of press releases, where your press release gets on a bunch of websites. It happens even at the newswires. PR Newswire releases appear on Yahoo and MarketWatch and a few little websites like that. But that's not the end goal. We're looking for a journalist to write an original article about you. We call that earned media. And, you really want to ultimately get that. And it isn't easy, but there are little tricks and tips that you can do to try to, make sure your release is more likely to get picked up.
I like that. And how do you track it? Like, I think that's the big thing, is like, how do you track the ROI, or how do you know where, when a client works with you, do you show them like, hey, here's all the places that your article is at? Or how do they know, like, what's their ROI? How do they know?
Right. So everybody's ROI is a little bit different. For some people, they're looking for the credibility boost that they get. It's almost like social proof when someone writes an article about you. And you can take that article and put it in front of your own customers as well as your leads. What happens with an article is a lot of times you want to do business with that company, and your blinders aren't up like they are with an advertisement. It's not unusual for customers to say, we got 400 visitors from this article that came directly from it, and it looks like as many as 200 bought. Is that even possible? And I'm like, well, yeah, everybody that read the article didn't click through, but the people who did often felt, they feel really good. They see this credibility boost. Someone wrote about you, and they click through. Yeah, they're more likely to buy from you. They're not likely to open a new window and say, can I get something similar on Amazon cheaper, or along those lines? They're not really in shopping mode. They're like in wanting to support someone. And I myself have read many articles and blog posts about Kickstarter campaigns. And the next thing I know, I'm supporting someone and giving my credit card out. And it's because the story was interesting, and it's often a little inspiring. You feel really good for a startup, and yeah, it's only $30 or $40. So yeah, those things happen naturally. And that goodwill that's there, you can put that in front of your customers, so that if someone might be shopping this year just to make sure they're with the best person, that maybe they feel like they don't have to this year. They're like, wow, this article proves that I'm with the right company. There's always people on the fence whether to work with you. So if you get it in front of a lead, maybe they're more likely to go and do business with you because of that, excitement and rapport that's created from a journalist who actually is, considered a thought leader in most people's spaces.
I think all those are such good points about the credibility piece, that it's kind of shifted because the industry has changed so much. It used to be, you could have an article in Forbes magazine, in the physical magazine, and you knew you were going to get so many people opening the magazine. And today it's just flooded. There's so much more information out there. What are you saying, like the eyeballs are that you get, number one, and then also address, which this is very similar to having a book, that it's a credibility piece. It's having a book, just like the article is. People get to know, like, and trust you. But there's also this SEO piece. Like you talked about, like you can send the article to people, you can show it, you can put it on social media and stuff like that. But this article is now, explain how it's working for you. Like if someone searches their name, just like a book, Amazon pops up and says, hey, this person has a book and here's about them.
Right. So SEO is really great because if you know anything about how Google's algorithm works, it looks at websites that have authority, and news sites have a lot of authority. So if a journalist writes an article about you, it will convey value to you, even if there's no link to your website. Google has what's called an implied link. And if they can contextually tell that article is about you, the focus of the article is about you, they will give you credit as if there was a link directly to your website. And that's a patent that Google holds. And it is one of the things that people see, that when they get in the New York Times, and even when there's no link, they get a little bit of a bump when their SEO pickup. I had one client whose sole goal was to get picked up in automotive trade publications because they had a new domain name and they weren't showing up for their city in Philadelphia auto repair. And we did a survey or study within their industry and sent that out and got the results, put together an interesting press release, and got over a dozen auto trade publications picked it up, as well as a few newspapers, including their local paper, and a few other little magazines along the way. And all of that boosted their SEO, which was almost non-existent, to within 3 to 4 months, they were ranking #1 in their area. And so it doesn't take a lot of links. It just takes authoritative links, and news sites are definitely very authoritative.
I think that's a great way to boost your website or to boost your business. I think that's really good because a lot of times business owners are thinking, how am I going to I just need SEO. I just need SEO. But they just think of this little piece, which is just an article. And I loved what you said earlier before about earned media. So it's kind of like the goal isn't really how much money am I going to make from this article. It's I want to be known for something. And then that earned media someone wrote is going to write something about you because of the article, right? So then you have multiple articles, like a snowball effect, kind of.
Right. And it also depends on the actual news outlet that picks it up, whether it does have like a measurable ROI. In the case of the auto repair shop, most of the people that picked it up were other automotive industry trade publications where their customers weren't there. They were fortunate enough to get their local newspaper to pick it up as well, which may have generated a little bit of pickup. But I also we did a initiative for the Dining Bond initiative during the pandemic, which was a very short-lived movement designed to help restaurants that were closed during the pandemic. The only marketing they did was a press release, and we stopped counting at 150 articles. It got picked up by all the major outlets and many dozens and dozens of small independent newspapers across the US, and generated over $10 million in revenue. So a $350 press release turned into more than $10 million. That is not what usually happens, but it can happen on a smaller scale where you get a flurry of orders as a result of some media pickup. It just depends on the audience. So if you get picked up in a magazine, a consumer magazine, like a major consumer magazine, like Oprah magazine, you can see a big flurry of sales. And we do have a lot of cosmetic brands that focus on women's magazines. And when that happens to them, they do get a flurry of sales. But there's also instances where you just appear on maybe some more minor newspapers or smaller magazines, and you just get like a nice little trickle. But you can still take those links to these places, or actually take scans of them and put them on your website, send them out through social media, share them with your customers and leads, and still get a bump in sales and conversions just by getting that authoritative text in that article and putting it in front of people.
Makes sense. So what should someone be paying for this type of service? What are the price ranges?
So for eReleases, we have a new customer special where you can distribute a release for $349. You can add writing to that for $300, but I tell most people that you can probably write a good press release yourself. They're not really elevated writing for the most part, though I will encourage you to spend a little more emphasis on the headline and what quote you're going to have. You want to have a really great quote. Maybe you say something that's really creative or persuasive or just a powerful statement. Quotes are really important, because if you have an amazing quote and maybe a mediocre press release around it, a journalist can develop a story based around a quote. And so having a great quote can really save you when it comes to having maybe a soft press release where it's not as newsworthy as other ones.
So would you say that a press release is really good for startups and like maybe to launch your book, to do an article and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when it comes to startups, they do really well with PR because they have their elevator pitch down pat. They know what they're about, how they're distinguished from everybody else in the marketplace. When you're doing a book launch, kind of approach it the same way. You didn't write a book that is already out there. You chose to write a book that has some difference to it. Really go through that, own the experience of that, build it out. What's the story behind the book, what's your personal story. Everybody that appears on Shark Tank always opens with their story, how the business came to be, maybe some setback they had or some health scare, or just they saw a need in the marketplace and they just fiddled around in a workshop and created something with string and straw and all of these little things, and something came together from it. And people love that. It's a human interest element, and don't discount that when you're working on doing a book launch or anything. What is the book about that's unique, but also what's your story? What makes you unique? And, where are the tribes that you belong to align themselves? Are you a mother? Are you a member of a community or a religious group? Or, have you immigrated from the US, or are you the first person in your family to get a master's degree or something like that? Those little elements can really add a little bit of spice to a press release. And at the end of the day, you have to realize that journalists are storytellers, and anything that you give them that enhance your announcement and adds more depth and elements allows them to really build out a story. We get so many product launch press releases that are, here's our product, here's a list of features, and you can't build a story from that. But if you have a use case study and someone who used it, what obstacle they had, how this product overcame that, what their results were, and then have a quote from them, that's much more of the ingredients needed to build out a story. So anytime you approach even, any type of release, book launch, anything, what's the story? Put a story in there, share some experiences with the genesis of the book, as well as what the book is about. And I think that would really help a lot of people and take advantage of the fact that you are your marketer, and you really have to sort of own it and leverage what are the opportunities that you have that you need to take advantage of. Toot your own horn. No one else is going to do that.
And I love how you had the, reaching back into your past, because sometimes you don't think about your story. And as you were talking about that, I'm thinking, what would make sense even for me? And I had to reach back. I used to be Miss Michigan. I was like, oh, from pageant to publishing, that's different. How did you get from going from being a, pageant girl into owning a publishing company? Just finding those hooks of what is your whole story and how can you tie it into where you are now and the product that you have now? That's really good advice that you gave. So thanks for coming today. Tell everyone where they can reach out and find you, your website or social media.
Sure. So eReleases.com is the website. All of our social media is on the lower right. Anybody who's open to PR and considering doing a press release, I recommend that they start with my free masterclass, and that's at eReleases.com/plan, PLAN. And it's basically an hour-long video that can help you do an audit of you and your business or your book, and sort of go through the meaningful strategic types of press releases that are more likely to stand out and get media attention.
I love that. And we'll make sure we give that to our authors as well. I think that would be great for them to share that with them. So
thanks, Mickie. We'll put that up in the show notes and on the article, on our blog article as well.
Yep. So we can find you everywhere. So if you're thinking about writing a book, so then you can have a press release of something else to talk about, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com. We'd love to work with you. We help you from just your idea all the way to a published book. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.